Alright, settle down. Welcome back to your second lecture on the history of Valpen. Let's get cracking, shall we? Winter had rolled its way to Thymesia. Snow had begun to blanket the lush grasslands. The forests became unified in colour, with the branches of trees being coated in the frozen tears of the wailing sky. Wind howled its way through the wooden and stone structures of the early city of Valpen, as fires were lit every night to warm the peoples. Huge feasts were had at the mead hall in celebration of the winter's feast. After a fruitful harvest of all manners of food, it was time for Brynjar and his wife, Kilthrid, to settle down and become a family, or so it would seem. All seemed well in the first winter of Valpen, almost too well. For to the north, as I mentioned in our previous lecture, that a new enemy had begun to rival Valpen in size and in population. The barbarians of the tundra, otherwise known as the Blood-Soaked Lords. A group of bandits, thugs, and barbarians rumoured to be cannibalistic in their traits, consuming heaps of human flesh after capturing a rival clan's warriors or even civilians. Led by one we know as Leif the Gorger, typically dropping his first name for the title of the Gorger. He was said to have been the bloodiest Jarl this group had ever seen. None had escaped his wrath. After doing fieldwork with neighbouring kingdoms of the Winter Woes, we had discovered child skeletons amongst the burial mounds of victims of this barbaric tribe. A notable fact is that in preserved flesh of some of his victims and war trophies, puncture marks upon the neck and throat were found in fang-like shapes. We have suspicion to believe that this clan were early vampires. The Gorger watched as the blessings of his frozen land spewed forth a harsh winter unlike the lands of Thymesia had ever seen before. But again, the city of Valpen did not seem shaken by the oncoming snow. This angered the Gorger further, prompting him to start a war song. In fact, it was recorded in the ancient human text. Here, I shall read it to you in his beastly tongue. Brothers, sisters, tonight we have a feast. The wind howls and blood is in the air. Down in the plains they mock us, using the lush grasslands that was promised to us. Brynjar is mine, and his precious city is yours for the taking. Raise your axes and feast! Feast! With every chant of the word feast, his warriors began to grow ravenous, hungered whilst angry with every beat of axe against wooden shield. In these times there was no wall around the frozen Tears Mountains, just a pathway straight into the icy heart of the north. This also resulted in a direct path southward for the blood-soaked lords to ravage the lands down toward Valpen. All the while, Brynjar held a mighty feast for the accomplishment of his town. In his mighty mead hall, he raised his goat horn flagon aloft and called out to his wondrous people. My friends, family, and my mighty warriors, tonight we celebrate the coming of winter, our time to feast, our time to rest our weary feet, and be in one another's company, of course. I toast you all, as without you and the bonds of unity, we would not have prevailed. It is you I should thank, and it is you that allowed us to prosper where other clans did not. And henceforth, from this day, we are no longer a clan, no longer a tribe. We are a kingdom of Valpen, and you are all my wonderful subjects, and I promise to you all that we shall prosper in the coming years. So drink, my friends, drink! A mighty cheer was held as their flagons of warmed mead was consumed, and the meat was cut from bone and shared between all. A singular guardsman of the newly formed kingdom rushed in, though, ceasing most of the festivities and catching Brynjar's full attention almost immediately. Catching his breath, the guardsman's eyes caught with his lord's, and he said, "My lord!" he projected, quieting the festivities with immediate effect. "My lord, from the north, torches, banners are raised with a bloody grin upon them. They do not march, they run towards us." The party of housecarls and mighty warriors ceased, and their attention was brought towards their king. Brynjar rose from his throne. "What ill have we done to cause such a reaction from the northern tribesmen?" "Exist, my lord," the guardsman quickly replied, bowing his head in respect. Brynjar looked towards his wife, who gave him a slight nod, granting him her hand to squeeze, and Brynjar breathed. "We'll have to celebrate in the morn. Tonight we brave the blizzard. Come, men, to arms!" Brynjar called out towards his cohort, all of which rose within an instant, grabbing blade, axe, spear, and all manner of weaponry and shield. A war horn blew out across the fortified small city, warning all civilians and warriors alike that trouble was on the way. Scrambling women and children rushed into the mighty mead hall, where they would wait under the queen's command. Brynjar, armoured in iron-clad, stood upon his walls, looking out towards the distant torchlight and the fire-illuminated banners, all of which had the bloody grin, as described by the guardsman. "The blood-soaked," he said under his breath. The first king raised his mighty blade, engraved with symbols of the ancient human tongue. "We meet them! We clash steel in the frozen fields! Together, brothers!" Another war horn blew. With no wait or hesitation, the honoured warriors rushed towards the tortured warriors of the blood-soaked lords. A thud of wood and steel happened within a few seconds, as warrior met warrior, and the battle begun. Brynjar was unafraid to join in the battle. In fact, he wished to be alongside his mighty warriors, right at the frontline shield wall of the blood-soaked warriors. The sound of warrior screams, gorge being beaten to a pulp, and steel blades singing as they struck against one another. All the while, the Gorger made his slow approach from the rear ranks, shoving past his own men, towering above them. His mass presence caused the fighting to take a brief pause, as both warriors of either clan took a glance at the dreadful visage of the Gorger. An impressed nose, red eyes that shone brighter than the stars, causing a slight hue to coat the pale faces of the frightened warriors. Mighty jagged armour adorned by trophies of flesh, skulls, bone and teeth. His breath could be seen as he snorted like an animal sniffing the air. The pungent metallic smell of fresh blood enticed the Gorger, causing a wicked smile, showing his protruding fangs, as he screeched out towards the honoured men. Some of their morale breaking, but the majority stayed firm. Brynjar gazed up at this malformed creature that was supposedly once a man. He had never seen such a thing before, an otherworldly creature of some kind. How could this be a human? It is a monster.
Flesh in abundance, my thralls. Eat and drink to your contents. The false king is mine.
This warped, snarled voice boomed its way out of the Gorger, as his talons, like fingers, pointed their way towards Brynjar. Brynjar readied himself, but it wasn't enough, as the creature possessed a magic of some kind. Within a blink, The creature had managed to stand in front of Brynjar and send his body flying back with one singular punch. The two lords, now separated and isolated from the clash behind them. The Gorger licked his crimson lips and laughed.
Mere mortal, your kingly nature shall not protect you here, for I am blessed by blood, and your blood shall be most deserving of a meal.
Brynjar rose to his feet, groaning as he stood, to lock eyes with the creature. Disgusting monster, it matters not what blood you possess, or blessing that you may have. My steel shall separate your head from your neck. Brynjar yelled as he charged, his blade being caught by the Gorger's blackened axe. The two lords locked furiously in a duel. Clashing of blade and axe, the Gorger continued to outspeed Brynjar, able to dodge every thrust and stab the king made. Making wild swings in return against Brynjar, he could feel the very strength of this creature with every mighty blow against his reinforced shield. But the reinforcement on the shield was not enough, as the Gorger struck a mighty blow against his wooden shield, causing it to break and splinter into thousands of pieces of wood chippings and fall into the snow below. His axe also embedded itself into Brynjar's left forearm. Brynjar clutched it as he fell. The Gorger sniffed the air.
Sweet blood, how it calls to me. Mortal king of mortal followers, die now, knowing that your little kingdom failed.
The Gorger held Brynjar aloft, grabbing him by his wounded arm, causing a pained cry from Brynjar. The Gorger sniffed the bloodied wound, and his tongue snaked out from his crimson lips. Brynjar panted, with a degree of fear. But he noted how the Gorger was fixated on his bleeding arm. He was still holding his blade. Brynjar jousted the blade directly into the monster's ribcage, prompting him to be dropped instantly. The Gorger screeched its unearthly scream, trying to clutch at the blade. Blood spewed outwards from the Gorger's chest. He panicked, trying to pull the blade from his chest. Brynjar looked downwards and saw the Gorger's axe, and he darted towards it. Feeling the weight of this weapon was clearly forged purely for this monster. His body was pulsing with adrenaline as he held aloft the axe in both worn and injured hands. Brynjar swung, and with a mighty crunch of bone and squelch of flesh did the ugly head of the Gorger come off. The blood-soaked warriors had seen their mighty supposed immortal leader fall to a mere man. Panic ensued, and they rushed back to the north, leaving any man that was injured. Some of Brynjar's men wished to charge and chase them, but Brynjar spoke. "No, let them run. Let them fester in their icy tundra. We return to feast and bury our dead. Slit their wounded throats, leave none alive." Examining his wounded arm, the pain had begun to settle in. He clutched his damaged arm, watching the warm blood trickle its way down into the icy snow. It wasn't long till they had returned home. Brynjar was seen to with immediacy by order of the Queen, his wife. Carefully was the wound cleansed, dressed, bandaged and stitched. However, it did make Brynjar feel weaker. Something felt as if his strength would not be the same in his shield arm. A burden he hoped he did not wish to worry about, if there were to be any future conflicts.